Hello, this is Justin Williams with the Wolfpacker Podcast. I'm joined this morning, as always, by co-host Matt Carter, and we're going to break down NC State's 68-61 road victory over Virginia. It's the Wolfpack's fourth straight ACC road win. First time that's happened in a single season since 1974. You might remember that year because, a guy by the name of David Thompson and Tommy Burleson were on that team, and they went on to win the national title. But before we get too far into this podcast and break it all down for you, this podcast is brought to you in part by JFQ Lending. With interest rates below 3%, there has never been a better time to lock in a low fixed interest rate on your mortgage. You'll never need to think about refinancing again. Set it and forget it. And with JFQ Lending, you are guaranteed to get the highest level of customer service. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and over 3,000 5-star reviews. Give Gage Kistner a call today at 480-401-1681 or email Gage directly at gkistner@jfqlending.com. That's the letter G, KISTNER @jfqlending.com. And JFQ Lending, Inc., Equal Access Lender, licensed in over 40 states, www.jfqlending.com. And while you're at it, head over to thewolfpacker.com and use promo code PACK60. That's promo code PACK60 for a free 60-day trial on all of our premium content, news, and analysis at thewolfpacker.com. If you were a premium subscriber, you would have been able to read my premium story about best case and worst case scenarios for the Wolfpack the rest of the 2020-2021 season. That was before the road win at Virginia. And, of course, the first check mark for that best case scenario was completed last night in Charlottesville. It included winning on the road against Virginia, so we'll see what NC State can do the rest of the way. But again, please use that promo code PACK60 for a free 60-day trial at thewolfpacker.com. And of course, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. We're on Apple Podcast app, Spotify, Google Play, pretty much everywhere you listen to podcasts. And of course, you can always stream us live on thewolfpacker.com. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please give this video a thumbs up. So, Matt, let's jump right into it. NC State was the last team to beat Virginia on the road entering this contest. 400 days had passed since the Cavaliers lost at home in John Paul Jones Arena. And it just so happens, I guess NC State just has Virginia's number in Charlottesville. They do it again 400 days later. Jump out to a big lead in the first half. Nice little run for the Wolfpack. I think they grew a lead as much as 14 points there in the first half. And, as cold as Virginia was early on in that game, NC State was hot. Virginia claws its way back. It even takes a lead in the second half, but NC State remained calm, cool, and collected. Grew the lead back to double digits in the second half and ultimately closed out for the victory. Wasn't pretty in a couple moments there in the last minute. NC State's fans' hearts were probably racing when Shaquille Moore bobbled that ball out of bounds with 16 seconds left with just a 4-point lead. But nonetheless, NC State goes 11-12 from the free throw line in the final minute and 1 second and ultimately secures its first quad one victory of the season. So, Matt, I guess just to start here, we were talking a while back that, NC State's NCAA tournament chances were very, very, very low. And they're still low, admittedly. But if you wanted to prevent NC State's at-large chances from dropping to zero, the Wolfpack needed a win in Charlottesville to at least keep playing basketball for some other reason other than just, pride and joy. It did that last night. Your thoughts?
I hesitate to get too much into the NCAA tournament because they still need to win out. To your point, it would have dropped to zero. Chances of an at-large bid with a loss, they still would drop to zero if they lose any more games, right, during the regular season. Because really, unfortunately, as I think we talked about before the podcast, and you might write about, unfortunately, the rest of the ACC is not helping out each other, not just NC State, but each other when it comes to at-large bids in the ACC. Just look at UNC getting their butt whooped last night by Marquette, which I know
that hurt NC State, and I'll write about that later today.
Yeah, that hurt a lot of teams, not just NC State, but it hurts a lot of teams in the ACC. But the game itself, what excites me is because you were kind of on this point before a lot of people were on this point. And admittedly, I kind of circumstances, yada, yada, yada. But the truth is that this NC State team was not a good second half basketball team. They were not a good team at closing games out. And last night, they closed it out against one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the ACC. Yeah, they dominated the first 15 minutes of the game. Virginia made a little run before halftime to get within striking distance. NC State came out ice cold in the second half. Virginia took its one and only lead at 34-32. I want to say it was about 13, 14 minutes left in the game. The NC State responded with a 12-2 run. And then I thought DJ Thunderberg played maybe the most important stretch of basketball this year, where he scored 9 straight points. 3 times he answered the Virginia score, including when Jay Huff hits a 3 to cut the lead down to 5. He goes down and gets a 3-point play and keeps it at 8 points. And then they were clutch at the free throw line. The only shaky moment with the inbounds play was like 18 seconds left. That was the only shaky moment,
Well, not to mention Sam Hauser couldn't miss.
Yeah, those were tough threes. The one that he nearly made to cut it, that would have cut it to 1, I think. With the ball bounced 2 or 3 times. I mean, Thunderbolt couldn't defend that any better than he did. So the only shakiness with the inbounding the ball was like, what was it, 18 seconds or 15? Somewhere in there.
It was about 16 seconds. And it was right after like a 5-minute official review on a call that, I mean, it wasn't even close. The ball went off of Virginia. I don't know why it took so long.
But that was part of the whole, first they had to call a timeout because they couldn't get it inbounds. And then they throw it inbounds, and it was not a good inbound pass. They were lucky Virginia knocked it out of bounds. Then there was the long review. And then the third try to inbound the pass, Shaquille Moore, I think he just took it. It's like a receiver in football, right? They're looking to turn and run upfield before they catch the pass. That's kind of what it looked like Shaquille Moore did. He was looking to see what his next move was before he actually completely caught the basketball and he turned it over. So what impressed me was just the fact that they were clutch in the second half. They were the team that looked like a veteran team, that looked like an NCAA tournament team, that looked like one of the better teams in the ACC. They made the plays. They responded. Virginia, I thought, actually played pretty decent. Played some of his best basketball the last 5-10 minutes of the game. Hauser got hot. Huff got hot. NC State just responded. And that is a sign of a growing up team, a team that you have to give Kevin Keats a whole lot of credit. A team that did not quit on this season. They have not given up, regardless of what happens. You have to give them that. They kept playing. They kept fighting.
Yeah, well, to your point about Kevin Keats, the doubters of Kevin Keats, the hot seat questions on Twitter and everything, I haven't seen any of that this morning. It's kind of odd because they were so loud a couple weeks ago. But nonetheless, what made those free throws down the stretch so impressive to me, or I think what stood out the most, was that 10 of those 12 free throw attempts in the final minute and 1 second were by freshmen. Cam Hayes went 6 of 6 from the line in that final minute. Darian Sebron made 1 of 2 on a 1-and-1, and then Shaquille Moore made another couple. Braxton Beverly hit the other 2, but the freshmen were put on the line in a big pressure situation, and they rose to the occasion, and that's not something NC State. NC State hasn't been a good free throw shooting team this season, but recently they've actually improved their average to the point where they're about a middle of the road ACC team from the foul line at this point.
And if I could say real quick before I let you get back to your point, Virginia was actually very aggressive on the fouling when they started to foul. They fouled Shaquille Moore with over a minute left, and I think it was 6-point game or something at that point. So they were trying to put the pressure on the freshmen early.
Yeah.
And so that was a deliberate strategy. And you're right. Give them huge credit for basically shoving it right back into Virginia's faces for trying.
Well, I guess it's a good opportunity for us to talk about the freshmen, because that's one of the main points that jumped out to me from this game. Not just the free throws down the stretch. That was a big part of it. But once again, you get a third straight double-figure scoring game from Cam Hayes. Started with the 11-point performance up at Pittsburgh. He had a career-high 9 assists in that game. And after that game, I asked him what that did for his confidence, because bluntly, he's really struggled in ACC play up to that point. Early on in the season, he was one of the better players on NC State early on the non-conference schedule. Granted, I know that those non-conference games weren't particularly tough, but then, pretty much ever since that COVID pause in December that lasted about 3 weeks for the Wolfpack, or 3 weeks specifically for Cam Hayes, he didn't come back until that Carolina game. He really struggled in the ACC play. He hit that freshman wall, but after that game, he said, it really gave him some confidence that was much needed. And I asked Keats once again last night, is that kind of the tipping point for him? Because now he's really come on to his own. He's making shots from the perimeter. He went 3 of 4 from 3 last night. I don't think he had an assist last night, actually, but more importantly, he didn't have any turnovers. I don't have that in front of me, but I think that might be the first ACC game that he hasn't turned the ball over once. NC State just finishes with just 9 turnovers, and actually last night was the first time NC State won a game this season without creating 19 or more points off of turnovers. Last night against Virginia, NC State is only able to create just 9 points off of 8 Virginia turnovers. I mean, look, Virginia's not going to give you those opportunities, but what made the win impressive is how well NC State executed in half court. They had 0 fast break points last night.
So did Virginia. That's a weird stat. Neither team had a fast break point.
And for a team like NC State that wants to push in transition, that wants to create off of turnovers, that's not really a winning formula for them, more times than not. What made the odds even more stacked against NC State is the fact that Virginia is one of the better defensive teams in the country. I know this is a down year for Virginia defensively. I mean, you look back in the past 7 seasons, they're consistently ranked, top 10 in defensive efficiency according to KenPom. I think 4 of those seasons they were ranked number 1 at the end of the season. They're right around a top 20 defensive team this year, so a bit of a down year for the Cavaliers, but still, from a national perspective, they're an elite defensive team. That pack line defense really forces you to make jumpers because they make it really tough around the rim. But, NC State just found a way to get it done in the paint. They outscore the Cavaliers 30-16 in the paint. And what really jumped out to me from that was Manny Bates has really developed a passing game. That's not something that you could even say earlier on this season. I know there was a lot of conversation that Manny Bates has developed an offensive game this year, and he has. He's been impressive on the offensive end, but the passing is something that has really been a new trait from him in these past few games. He had a career-high 3 assists against Pittsburgh in that road win over the Panthers, and he tied his career high with 3 assists again last night, because pretty much every time Virginia wanted to double-team him, he found a way to pass out of it and give a good opportunity to, Darion Sebron or Jericho Hallams or DJ Funderburk for an easy slam dunk in the middle of the lane. And that's huge. That if opposing defenses can't rely on, creating a turnover or getting a defensive stop when you double team Manny Bates, that just opens up so many things on the offensive end. And I think that's one of the things that's going to be, maybe looked past in this game because there's so many talking points. But Manny Bates' development, skill-wise and his passing game, that's going to do wonders for this NC State offense moving forward. I mean, do you kind of see it the same way as I do, Matt?
Yeah, and to beat Virginia, you need big men that can handle the basketball in the paint. I want to go back to where you were starting with the freshmen too. I mean, you mentioned Cam Hayes with 14 points, and I think Shaquille Moore had 12
He had he
points in this.
Yep, he had 12, and I didn't mean to skip over him. He played great.
Yeah, and his ability to get to the basket is exactly that's why Florida State crushed Virginia because they got athletic guards that can penetrate and drive and finish. And I think he did that two or three times in the game. And then Darion Sebron, that after that Hauser missed three that bounced on the rim three or four times. Who was it that got the rebound? Very strong rebound, clean rebound. And I really think that's an area where he can really help NC State, is giving them a rebounder. Because we know Kevin Keith would prefer to play a smaller lineup, right? Smaller ball. But his ability to give you a little bit of everything. The difference between freshmen that first game and this game was night and day different. And then to your point about Manny Bates, becoming a little bit more comfortable in the paint. Maybe DJ Vanderbilt can add a few assists to that as well, and they can really get rolling. But I think what we've seen is finally took a little while, but finally Kevin Keith has kind of touched on a formula that works. Right, we got a lineup that kind of tweaked it. Braxton Beverly, good role for him as being that guy 20 minutes off the bench.
Yep.
Shaquille Moore, good role for him as being the top reserve off the bench. The Thunderbird, Bates, Hallam, Sebron, big lineup worked. And I thought defensively, maybe Virginia missed some shots, but they also made some shots in the second half to make up for that. I just thought NC State was great defensively in this game. And I think this is a very strong defensive lineup that NC State had on the floor. So we may have actually, kind of found the formula that works. And maybe Bates having a Thunderbird or a Helland on the floor with him allows him to kind of show off a little bit more of the passing game. He's not Magic Johnson, as Kevin Keith joked when answering the question last night. But, now you know that you can do multiple things with him offensively when you dump the ball. He also made a couple of hook shots in the lane. So it really just seemed to me, I don't know what your thoughts, it just seemed to me like they found the formula that seemed to be working. They've won 3 straight games with this lineup, all on the road. And quite frankly, I felt like they played each game was maybe a little bit better than the previous one. These have been 3 of the best games they played all season.
Well, after Devin Daniels' season-ending ACL tear in late January, Kevin Keats was pretty quick to admit that the identity of this team had changed. And we had talked even before the Daniels injury that this NC State team was really, even with Daniels, was still trying to find its identity. It never really settled into a true identity. In fact, Devin Daniels really bailed out a lot of shortcomings from this NC State team because he was a guy that could, you could just give him the ball and he can find a way to get into the paint and make a weird little shot. He's going to be a guy that typically finishes with 15 points or more, and picked up a large chunk of that scoring production. But recently, we've been talking about these recent performances. This was the best performance of the season, or this was the best offensive performance of the season. I think we both agreed that the road win over Pittsburgh may have been NC State's best offensive game this year overall. But in terms of a complete game on both ends of the floor, effort-wise, energy-wise, I think this is the best NC State has produced this season in this 7-point road win over, a nationally ranked Virginia team that was a top 10 team, for a good chunk of the ACC schedule this year. To your point, I thought it may have been NC State's best defensive game. I don't know if it was their best offensive game, but it was very close to it because of how strong that Virginia defense is. It did exactly what it needed to do. It pounded the paint, it attacked the rim, and they leaned into their new identity, which is relying on their experienced veteran front court pieces and they outscore Virginia almost 2-1 in the paint, and that's what got it done.
You have to grade on a curve too, right? Offensively, when you play Virginia, you kind of have to grade it on a curve. So like scoring 68 points and shooting, what did they shoot, like 45? Somewhere in the ballpark of 45%.
45.5% from the field, 41.7% from three.
Yeah, I mean, that's the equivalent if you're playing average Joe in the ACC. That would have been an 80-point game and close to 50% shooting.
Yep.
So the whole grading on the curve, you have to your point, I mean, I think you have to. I was impressed because I didn't think they would have that much success. I thought the double team that Virginia, in fact, at one point, Virginia got away from doubling in the paint. That's a staple of the pack line defense, that double team in the post. They tried to mix it up and quit doing it.
Because the bigs forced them to.
Yeah. They were giving up too many dunks to Funderburk, and Seaborn had one. And so, and the funny thing is about this game is that, they didn't get the normal. This is the first time I think an ACC plays Zero Cohelum didn't have double digit scoring.
Yeah.
So you're starting to see, because of the freshman development, that the roster really come around. You're seeing the depth of the talent a little bit more. And it goes back to finding that formula that works. And then the interesting thing is what happens when Thomas Allen is ready to rejoin the equation. That's going to be an interesting thing to watch. Good problem to have, but it's going to be an interesting thing to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good problem to have. We'll see. I mean, we don't know what that injury status is. I mean, he has a sprained ankle. Keats didn't have an update for him on Monday. We didn't hear anything about it before or after the game against Virginia. But, Allen's a guy that when he's scored in double figures, I think NC State hasn't won when he's had a double-figure scoring game. And I think that's partially because when you have to rely on Thomas Allen's three-point shooting to get some scoring production, that's not really a winning formula for this NC State team. But, I think Allen's really going to have to earn his minutes back to get back into this rotation once he does come back from injury. And I hope the rehab goes well, and I hope he, is able to return as quickly as possible. But, to your point about NC State kind of finding a winning formula here, it's working, and you don't want to do anything to disrupt that. So it'll be interesting to see how that situation is handled. But of course, Kevin Keats will cross that bridge when he gets there. But the thing that stuck out to me offensively is just how well-rounded the offensive performance was. I mean, 12 assists on 20 made field goals, 60%. You'll take that from this NC State team every day. And you briefly mentioned Braxton Beverly, his role, 20 minutes off the bench. He's been huge in these past three games. He's battled through injuries. In that Duke game, he went out and he missed the second half due to, I guess, a hip injury. He hasn't been able to practice ever since. He's just been playing in games, and that's tough from a team that Kevin Keats rewards guys based on how they perform in practice. Beverly's a guy that's a senior in the ACC, and he jokes frequently about how it feels like it's his 6th or 7th year in the ACC, and he kind of has the feel of an old man when he's out there on the court with all the, the battle wounds that he's developed over his 4 years here at NC State. But, his contributions off the bench have been invaluable to this NC State team. He hit a huge three when Virginia was making a run in the second half last night. He scored just 5 points, but, he made 1 or 2 of his threes. And in those 20 minutes, he had the best plus-minus rating out of anybody on the NC State roster. He finishes with plus 12. Second best was Manny Bates with plus 8. So, I mean, that's something that's worth pointing out with Braxton Beverly. He's never going to be the most athletic guy. The size is, something that really makes the odds stacked against him and against ACC competition, but he just makes smart basketball decisions when he's on the floor. Kevin Keats trusts him on the floor. That's why he was out there in those final minutes, because he's a guy if you want to send one of these guards to the line, you probably feel the most comfortable sending Braxton Beverly to the line. He made 2 big free throws down the stretch. But, I mean, once again, we talked about after the Wake Forest game, I don't think anybody played a bad game. Everybody contributed. Everybody was a positive contribution that played in that game. And once again, NC State had just a 7-man rotation last night, but everybody played a role. Braxton Beverly's 5 points. I already mentioned his plus 12 rating when in his 20 minutes on the floor. Darion Sebron, I know of the 3 freshmen that play considerable minutes, he's kind of the last guy that's mentioned, and partially because he's not a big scoring guy. He finishes with just 5 points, but he got it done in so many different ways. Those 3 rebounds on the defensive end, he had 3 assists, he had a block, he had a steal. I mean, that's what you need from Darion Sebron. Oh yeah, that was a block that prompted Jordan Cornette to go, is that Sebron or LeBron?
Right. I mean, and that was a big play in the game. It turned out to be a big play in the game.
Well, it was right after an NC State turnover when NC State really, needed a bucket. Virginia was clawing its way back into that game. Virginia pushed in transition, probably would have been able to score the first fast break points of that game, and Sebron comes out of nowhere. And I mean, the reason Jordan Cornette compared him to LeBron is it was kind of a signature block off the backboard, kind of what you'd expect from LeBron. I mean, LeBron's notorious for just sneaking up out of nowhere with his speed and athleticism and just denying somebody at the rim when they think the coast is clear, and that's exactly what happened in that stretch with Sebron. So, look, an A-plus performance from NC State, something you got to be encouraged with the Wolfpack moving forward. They've got 3 games left in the regular season, and I know I opened with the NCAA tournament talk, and I'm not I'm not trying to get anybody's hopes up. Let's face it, NC State's probably not going to make the NCAA tournament short of a magical run in Greensboro. The only way that they would definitely be in is if they win the conference championship in Greensboro 2 weeks from now, and the odds are stacked against them there because they're not going to be a top 4 seed, and in the past 15 years, only one team has won 4 games in 4 days to win the conference championship. But what this does in the performance of these freshman guards is it gives you a ton of confidence moving forward for the future of this NC State program. Because if your freshman guards are going to play like this, you can expect further development down the road into their sophomore and junior seasons. And if NC State's getting that type of production from its backcourt, that's a winning formula for Kevin Keats' program. And, NC State fans should be excited about the basketball that they get for the rest of this season. And, we'll see what this team can do, because I think, you got Pittsburgh coming to PNC Arena on Sunday. We'll see, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper just announced that he's going to sign an executive order allowing for up to 15% of fans in the stands. We'll see if that is, if NC State allows up to that capacity as soon as Sunday. I'd say it's probably, 50-50 or doubtful at this point. Maybe they can get them in for senior day in that final game against Virginia Tech. But 3 winnable games ahead for the Wolfpack. You got a home game against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh star point guard Xavier Johnson just announced he's transferring. He's not going to play the rest of the season. Pittsburgh's going to be shorthanded. And then they're going to go up to Notre Dame and take on the Fighting Irish, a team that, is pretty good offensively, but defensively is the worst in the ACC. A winnable game there. And then, Virginia Tech's having its own struggles since they've come back from a second COVID pause. And, we'll see what the Hokies can do in PNC Arena in the final stretch. But NC State could make it interesting. That's kind of what I alluded to in my best case scenario. Another reason for you to use that promo code PACK60 if you want to check out that best case, worst case scenario story on the Wolfpacker.com. Use promo code PACK60 for a free 60-day trial. But it's good to see NC State give us some exciting basketball here down the stretch, especially when things really did not go well in the month of January and in early February in ACC play. But Matt, with all that said, unless you got any other points you want to bring up, I think we could just jump into game balls here.
Sure. I'll remind the guy who I had as player of the game, DJ Vanderberg. I think he had 14. I don't have the box score in front of me, but I remember 14 points, 6 rebounds, all defensive rebounds. Yeah, I just think that stretch he had about 4 or 5 minute stretch from about the 12-minute mark to the 7-minute mark where he scored 9 straight points for NC State. Yeah. If NC State To your point about talking about NCAA tournament and all that, at least it's fun to talk about it, right? I
Right.
mean, we know it's a long shot. Everybody knows it's an extreme long shot, and that there's no margin for error, zero margin for error. But you're still talking about the fact that you have zero margin for error because you keep winning. And let's say NC State does win out and they're going to Greensboro with something to play for other than trying to secure the automatic bid. You might go back and point to that 4 to 5 minute stretch that Thunderbird had in Charlottesville, where he made sure that when NC State went on that 12-2 run that turned a 2-point deficit into an 8-point lead, that it stayed an 8-point lead 4 to 5 minutes later when Virginia started scoring again. That was a fifth-year senior stepping up to the occasion.
And I'm going to give him my game ball here in just a second, but there is one more point that I wanted to make, and I do want your thoughts on it, Matt, is my last note in the notebook, and one thing that I asked all the players that were made available after the win was the energy on the bench was something that Kevin Keats noted as a plus for NC State in this road win over Virginia. And to me, I haven't been there in person, but I have been able to see on TV in these last 3 road games. And one thing I noticed early on in the season is that NC State's bench was oddly calm and not so energetic in some of these home games early on in PNC Arena when these visiting ACC teams came. The visiting teams had all the energy on the bench. It gave the players on the court for the opposition a lot of energy. It gave them an extra spark. And for whatever reason, since that Duke loss at home, an embarrassing loss for NC State to lose to a Duke team that was, coming into that game with equal struggles, losing by 16. And look, Duke played well, but NC State did not play well in that game, and the energy just wasn't there from the Wolfpack. But in these last 3 road games, the bench has really embraced its role as being the spark plug, the energy, especially with no fans in the stands. I mean, they've been up on their feet. They're cheering them on when things are going well, and then even when things are not going so well, they're motivating their teammates on the floor to pick it up and give them an extra boost that typically the fans would be giving. So, I mean, I know it's kind of one of those things that's not an X and O and it's not reflected on the stat sheet, but in the game of college basketball, a game that's so emotionally involved and you're dealing with 18 to 22, and in Braxton Beverly's case, 24-year-old college athletes, that's huge to get the bench to be that energetic, and it's contagious. It spreads to everybody in the program, and the players admitted that they have noticed it, and it just seems like all these guys are having fun right now. I don't know what necessarily was the switch that caused NC State to embrace that in these past 3 games, maybe a little bit too little too late, but it's encouraging to see that NC State has been getting that energy from its bench. And I know you and I have talked off air about, the impacts of no fans at these college basketball games. It's taken some of the fun away from the sport, and it's taken some of the attention and energy away, from outside of the players and coaches, just from the fans' perspective. But Matt, just maybe give your thoughts on maybe your observations of the bench in these past 3 games, and do you also agree that, it's played a role in this recent winning streak that the Wolfpack has had?
You have to create your own energy, and that's part of the maturity of a team. It's when Duke beat NC State, they had great energy on their bench. I actually thought NC State had pretty good energy to match at the beginning, and then when things got tough, it seemed to a lot of sitting in the chairs and et cetera, et cetera. I think that, and I don't want to make it sound like that's totally on the guys at the end of the bench not playing, because I think it's the regulars when they come out of the game, they have to step it up too. But I'm a big body language guy, always have been, and I would say the body language of NC State has been really good the last few games. And again, that goes back to what I said earlier in the podcast. You have to give Kevin Keats and this team credit. They didn't fold, they didn't quit. There are some teams in the ACC right now, you don't want to speak negatively about teams, but look at Wake Forest since they've lost to Florida State.
They checked out.
Yeah. Let's look at Boston College, you know.
Understandably checked out.
Yeah. Miami.
Wow.
We'll find out about Pittsburgh here this weekend. So NC State didn't check out. Yeah, they dug deep. They rallied together. I think that's what you're seeing on the bench too, with a team that didn't check out, that decided, no, we're going to fight and play for each other, which is what this year's about, is you're playing for each other. There's no fans there to play for. I mean, they're watching on TV and everything, but you're playing for each other this year. And yeah, I think that's what you're seeing from the bench and the body language of NC State.
I totally agree, and I think it's something that's made this NC State team, a team that nobody wants to face now. I don't. It's one of those teams that, look, they're going to be a lower seed in the ACC tournament, but I don't think anybody wants to see them in Greensboro right now, the way they're playing and the energy that they're bringing night in, night out. But I'll go ahead and give my game ball after that, brief mention there. But for the third game in a row, I'm going to give my game ball to Cam Hayes. He set his personal best in ACC play with 16 points, went 3 of 5 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3. He also made 7 of his 8 free throw attempts, added 3 rebounds, and grabbed 2 steals. He's just growing up, before our eyes, and he's confirming the flashes that he showed early in the non-conference slate, where early on it was like, whoa, this guy doesn't look like a freshman. He looks like an upperclassman point guard that, couldn't just be a good point guard for NC State, but could contend to be one of the better point guards in the ACC. And he certainly hit a wall in January and had his turnover problems and had his finishing problems. And there's still a lot of room for growth for Cam Hayes. I'm not trying to get too ahead of myself here, but finally NC State seems to have found a point guard that can run its offense to replace, a guy that they had for the past 3 seasons in Markel Johnson. That was a huge piece for NC State, and I think was a big part of why NC State has struggled here, early on in ACC play, is that they were just trying to find that go-to guy that could generate the offense and make everything flow. And I think the ball movement has just been so great these past 3 games, and it starts with Cam Hayes as the facilitator. So he talked about after the game that his ice cream preference is actually a milkshake, but Kevin Keats apparently has a rule where you have to be at least a sophomore to get a milkshake. Well, I think Cam Hayes, if he has a couple more games like this, Coach Keats might want to consider giving his 6'3" freshman point guard from Greensboro maybe a milkshake or 2, because he certainly deserved it with his play down the stretch here. Exciting to see his development and growth, and it's good to see him gain some confidence at the very least going into next year, and it makes this NC State team exciting to watch down the stretch. So there are game balls, there are observations. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, everywhere you listen to podcasts. Plus, you can listen to us on the Wolfpacker.com. So again, please subscribe to the pod and give us a 5-star review. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up so that other Wolfpack fans can see it. And please follow us on social media. You can follow us at The Wolfpacker on Twitter. You can follow me personally at Justin H. Will. Give us a like on Facebook, NC State Wolfpack on thewolfpacker.com. And, of course, please use that promo code PACK60 at thewolfpacker.com for a free 60-day trial on all of our premium content, news, and analysis. So for Matt Carter, this is Justin Williams, and this has been the Wolfpacker Podcast.